You've got a lot of fans out there
Mhm.
who can find out a lot of information about you all over the internet, and I want to talk a little bit more today about things that people might not know about you,
Okay.
the backstories about your childhood and things like that.
Sounds good.
So you were born in Queens, New York, right? 1973.
That's correct.
What was your childhood like? If I asked you to tell me the earliest memories you have of your childhood, what would those be?
Probably street ball in really narrow alleyways.
Uh-huh.
Learning to hit the ball straight because if it would go crooked, it would go over someone's yard or a roof. So, just kind of rag and tag, concrete backyard type
Hmm.
stuff. Just no computers back then, so
Right,
just
right.
really using your imagination a lot, playing with action figures. So a lot of that kind of stuff. That's probably what I remember most of my childhood.
Right. So are you an only child?
No, I have a younger brother, 3 years younger. He's still in New York. And yeah, yeah. So I would basically play with him and the neighbors and things like that.
Hmm. So what brought your parents to New York?
I think just opportunity,
Uh-huh.
like anybody that comes to this country. So that's pretty much my father was um, gonna go to college, I think, in the States at
Hmm.
Auburn, and he's from Shanghai. And then he had married my mother, but he was coming out for college, and then he was gonna sort of set the roots here, and then she would follow when she was done with her nursing degree, and then start a life together
Hmm.
in the United States.
So are both your parents from Shanghai?
My mother is from Hong Kong.
Okay, so that's how you got your Cantonese.
Yes,
Do
my
you
Cantonese.
speak Shanghainese?
No, and the weird thing is that because my dad wasn't very patient with teaching me how to speak
Hmm.
Shanghainese, so that makes sense why I don't understand anything. But I went to Chinese school for Cantonese. My mom, I grew up pretty much, and my dad could speak Cantonese too. So pretty much that was my sort of learning intent with English. So when I would go over to my dad's side, my grandparents, I remember them speaking Shanghainese, but I just thought they were speaking really fast. I was like, wow, I really can't understand a word what they're saying. But then I
Right.
realized literally maybe like when I was like 10 that
Hmm.
they were speaking a totally different language.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right, right. So what was your relationship like with your parents during the childhood years?
Um, Relationship. I would say that they were working a lot.
Hmm.
They were working a lot.
What
So
did your parents do?
my dad was an insurance salesman,
Hmm.
and my mom was a nurse.
Okay.
And then there's nothing really um, out of the norm besides just getting. I just remember getting up real early for school, doing the
Hmm.
whole rush, packing lunches, and then going to school, and then coming back at night and seeing them and having dinner. And that was kind of our life for like the first 8 years of my life. And then my dad, I guess things were going. They were just sort of having problems, and then by the time I was 10, they were divorced,
Hmm.
and then my mom had to pick up several jobs to sort of, she had custody of us.
Hmm.
And by that time, so we were left home a lot after school. We would come back and sort of, it was our job to sort of like feed ourselves, and she would come back late by our bedtime. So we were pretty much on our own from like 3 to like, by the time we had to go to sleep. So
Hmm.
keeping ourselves busy, and that's when I watched a lot of like television,
Right, right,
and that's how I sort of I think got an affinity for just storytelling in that medium.
right,
Watching a lot of film and television, but then later, knowing my mom would come home, I would try to cram in my homework the last hour,
right, right,
to
right.
get it all done.
So
So that
was that more after the divorce that you and your brother were spending a lot of time at home alone?
yes, yeah, we
Hmm.
were pretty much latchkey kids
Right,
by circumstance. So
right. Then in college, you ended up majoring in business, right?
correct.
And how
Yes.
did you segue? Tell me about that story. Where was the pivotal moment when you decided that's not what you wanted to do?
Right. Well, starting my freshman year, and the girl that I was dating, she was the same thing. She was in the business program, but she was a latchkey kid.
Hmm.
We had lived almost parallel lives, And
Hmm.
she started watching a lot of TV and really wanted to get into that world as well. And By day we were business majors, and at night we signed ourselves up for every single talent show on campus, and we
Mm-hmm.
would cast our friends, and we would write, there'd be like music segments in it, and we basically learned hands-on, like how to like hold for laughs and set up lighting and holding for the beats of the joke and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's sort of how we got our education, got my sort of our fix.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pivotal moment was when a theater company, Asian American theater company called Here and Now,
Mm-hmm.
came and they toured colleges, and they came to our school,
Mm-hmm.
and it basically did a lot of like Saturday Night Live sketches, but
Mm-hmm.
Asian American centered, and it ranged from comedy to drama, and it was just really well done. And by the time I was a junior, I had technically had enough credits to graduate
Mm-hmm.
because I was trying to fast track it. I was like, I know I'm going to go to law school, so it's going to be more schooling. So let me just take 20 credits a semester so I can just start shaving stuff off, shaving years off. And
How very Asian of you.
yeah, and then, but by that time, it was kind of a rude awakening because by the time I was a junior, I was like, I technically am supposed to be out in the real world, and I am not ready to go out to
Right.
do this.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was going to pay for one more year of college, so I decided to take every course that in the course book that I said, hey, that would look cool to take, and they were
Mm-hmm.
all like acting classes or
Mm-hmm.
media classes, and I took all those my senior year, and it was just so much fun. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a huge breakthrough, and so that's when but I was interning because I was still in the business program. I was interning
Right.
for companies and sort of getting a taste of the corporate world, and I was like, oh man, I cannot do this right now. I would take the train in New York and watch everybody get on the subway, and everyone did not look like they were happy wherever they were going. It was
Right.
so depressing, and I was like, I realized that, if I were to make a quote unquote unpractical move, it would have to be now when I had like no ties, no pension, no kids, and
Right.
so as soon as I graduated, I headed out to California to pursue an acting career.
But so you did graduate with the business degree then?
I have a marketing degree and crammed in a minor in media studies, and yeah,
Did you ever use the business degree?
every day, every day.
Interesting. How so?
Yeah. Because now my business, instead of marketing someone else's product,
Mm-hmm.
I'm the product.
Right.
And that's how I've always saw myself as soon as I came out. I write my own press releases. I pretty much, kind of handle all of my marketing. If I have a appearance on GH, I come up with cool little ads to advertise my appearances and things like that.
Right. So you're
So
pretty much CEO of your own brand and you
exactly.
wear multiple hats, right?
Exactly. No, I figured out early on that because I tried hiring other publicists and managers and agents, and I came down to it. It's like no matter how powerful they are,
Mm-hmm.
no one is going to work harder for me than me,
Correct?
or for yourself,
Right.
because no one is going to stay up at 1 o'clock in the morning
Right.
working for you because they're going to have other clients, and
Yep.
they just physically aren't able to do that unless have something vested personally. So
And they're very expensive. The best ones are very
yeah,
expensive.
exactly.
Yeah.
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 So
So that's an interesting point, though, that everything that our parents wanted us to do, in a lot of cases, it does end up paying off education-wise, right? Even if you're
yeah,
not directly in that field.
exactly. You can always
Yeah.
extrapolate something
Right.
that's going to be applicable in life.
So let's move on to when you first got to LA. What
Okay.
were those first few weeks and first few months like? Was it really hard?
Yes, I was kind of trying to be a pioneer and sort of like basically literally go west.
Right.
But at the same time, I had a safety blanket and I had my return ticket scheduled for 2 weeks
Oh,
after I was
wow.
out here. So
Uh-huh.
I was like, I'm gonna come out and come back.
Right.
But I mean, it just took by 2 weeks. That it's not even enough to get your bearings, and you're like, oh
Right.
wow. So I kept pushing back my return ticket
Yeah.
and staying with my mom's relatives who were in California, and I didn't even really know the locations. Like California was California to me. So she had relatives in like Southern California, Northern California, which is like 8 hours north, which
Right.
is all the same. I'm like, once I got here and figured out the logistics, I'm like, oh wow, this
Mm-hmm.
is um, is very different locations. But the one thing that was sort of the saving grace was I had sought out that theater company Here and Now,
Right.
and I because they're based in Los Angeles, and I had met with them. Said, hey, I would like to see if I can possibly join your group. And what made this theater company very unique is that it wasn't a traditional theater company in the sense of sort of like the end goal was to be on television or like a training ground for something. It was really a bunch of college kids who had an interest in the arts, and you the sort of goal was to write stories that came from your life experiences. So the sort of like the mantra was like, writing the stories would come from if the story came from a true place, it would be universal.
Mm-hmm.
And that was instilled very on in me, as opposed to saying these are the beats, the technical stuff, and the
Right.
competition and the cattiness of most theater companies. So I would say in the group of like 20 people who were in the cast, maybe five wanted to be actors professionally.
Right.
So that was really because I mean my closest friends to this day are still from that theater company,
Mm-hmm.
and this is we're talking about over almost like 20 years
Yeah.
going right now, and so I joined them and basically sort of learned sort of how to really perform on stage
Mm-hmm.
from by touring colleges across the country and performing live on stage. But it was tough finding, it didn't pay hardly anything, but it fulfilled me creatively for
Right.
sure.
Right.
So that was a tough part. I had being a business major, I had saved a lot of money and very
Mm-hmm.
practical, and I came out here with a good nest egg. But
Right.
eventually, it was running out,
Right. Right.
and I didn't want to be an actor statistic where most actors become waiters
Mm-hmm.
because it's a convenient job that you can leave quickly and
Mm-hmm.
but make a lot of money, but not be trapped down in something that was sort of mind intensive,
Right.
and so I really held off on doing that. But I was an RA in college,
Mm-hmm.
resident advisor, and basically
Mm-hmm.
all you do is really just hang out and make sure order isn't kept in peace, where the residents don't kill each other.
This is in LA?
This was in when I went to the State University of New York at Buffalo for my
Oh, okay.
college.
Right. Okay.
And so I was like, this would be a great gig
Mm-hmm.
if I could find something like this in LA. So
Right.
I sought out positions in that nature, and I
Right.
found a boarding high school.
Mm-hmm.
But and basically all I did was take care of the kids when they
Mm-hmm.
got out of school at 3 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
and sort of did programming on the weekend, like took them on trips and things like
Right.
that. But I got free housing,
Wow.
benefits, and was just able to save money because I paid a salary. But during the
Right.
daytime, I was free to slowly go to acting classes and get my
Right.
auditions in, and just kind of, every actor needs those years to sort of find their way,
That was a
and
smart
train.
path, though. That was a really smart thing to do.
I was very fortunate because I mean, for 5 years while I worked at that school, I mean, I was able to, have the best of both worlds, be
Right.
independent, but still save money, but but also work on my craft.
Right.
So the only tough part, the big sacrifice was that it was about almost 100 miles from Los Angeles.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so
Wow.
every time I would go to acting classes, I would have to drive 100 miles, or for all that 2 minute audition where you're like, I probably
Right.
won't even get this.
Well, how often did you go to acting classes during that time?
3 days a week.
So
So
3 days a week, you had to trek 100 miles per
per
way.
yeah per yeah, it was a
Wow.
round trip. Round trip would be
Oh,
100.
round trip was 100 miles. Okay.
Yeah, but I
Still
mean, still,
long. Yeah.
it's literally a 3 hour commute both
Right.
way, full way. So it'd be tough. But it was, hey, if that's what I had to sacrifice, that's what I had to sacrifice. I mean,
Right.
usually
Right.
other people would have to live in this little sty and then pay
Right.
out the nose, but I
Hmm.
was living on this 123-acre campus, I mean, and at night when everyone went home, it was literally my estate, taking
Right.
care of these
Right.
teenagers. And interestingly enough, the I was taking care of the boys' dorm, and the female coworker I had took care of the girls' dorm.
Right.
Uh, I ended up marrying her, so
Oh,
that's how I found my wife.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Cool.
we were parents to like these 80 teenagers for 5 years.
Right. Sounds like something out of Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
So when you think back to those years in LA, the first few years before you got your first big break,
Mhm.
what moment comes to mind that you were just in absolute despair and, either on the verge of tears or actually in tears where you thought that this is it, I can't do this anymore, it's not going to happen. Did you ever have a moment like that?
I have that moment like every 5 years. I mean, because I mean, I think when Conan O'Brien left the Tonight Show when he was
Hmm.
forced out
Hmm.
and he gave his farewell speech, something that he said just really hit home where he's like, no one ever gets what they think that they should get,
Hmm.
and that's so true. But, if you continue to do good work and are kind, amazing things will happen,
Hmm.
and the path that I had, I kept a journal when I first started and I mapped out like how things would be or I wanted it to be, and
Right.
it has deviated, but it's another path of its own that I could not have even, imagined. So
Right.
there's something to be said for that of not being trying to control. You try to control as much as you want, but
Right.
it's going to go whatever path, so it's there. I mean, the first time that I really kind of broke down was I've been doing a lot of I've been working maybe I'd say like 3 years taking
Hmm.
acting classes, and I literally would say that I was one of the most hardworking actors in the business. I mean, I was promoting like crazy, getting headshot. I mean, going to seminars, learning,
Hmm.
absorbing like a sponge. I mean, I'm so lazy now in comparison. Um, but I just wasn't seeing anything. I mean, it was like the same roles of, the grocery boy.
Right.
At the time when I first started, it was awesome, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm on TV. This is
Right.
great.
Right.
But after a while, it's like, oh man, this is like if I take a step back, this is not really getting me anywhere,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Um, and then I remember just sort of thinking maybe I should just quit because at that point, then of course, then if anyone who goes has a career in the arts, all of their other friends who went into more traditional routes
Hmm.
start seeing some success, and you
Right.
start comparing, obviously, and you're like, oh wow, they have a house now, and
Right.
and you're saying I should be there, right?
Hmm.
And went through the same thing because all my friends were business majors,
Right.
so they're pulling in, they're getting promotions and all those things, and I'm like, oh
Hmm.
my gosh, what am I doing,
Right.
and then came along the Better Luck Tomorrow script.
Hmm.
And then where this one, they said, I want you to read for the character of Ben. And you turn first page one and Ben's right there. And you're like, holy cow, I'm throughout this whole thing, And
Right.
it was just like all those years I've been taking acting class, it's like it was exercising. I was being able to like do what I was training to do, And
Hmm.
the worst thing is that you train so hard and you never are able to see can you to put your skills to the test, And this one had like comedy and drama and angst and had so many layers. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to be a part of
Right.
this
Right.
project. And I think all the other actors who ultimately got those roles felt the same way because I would see all those guys who ultimately got cast. We were all auditioning against each other,
Hmm.
Jason Tobin, Roger Fan, John Cho, Sung Kang,
Hmm.
and um, and so that all of a sudden, once we were part of that, even though it didn't pay anything, and it took us out of pilot season, which is supposed to be the most lucrative
Right.
potential part
Hmm.
of picking up a show and being a series regular, it was like it sort of renewed our faith. And once we saw the end product, like we're just as good as any of these other guys that are getting
Right.
shows.
Hmm.
We can do this. So that sort of renewed all of our faiths in doing this because I think we were all about to on our way out of questioning where we were and how this working out.
Hmm. So how have you managed to break out of stereotype roles? Like your role in General Hospital right now, I would say that's not a stereotypical role for an Asian guy at all.
Hmm.
How have you managed to do that as an Asian actor?
Right. I mean, that came to was another sort of crossroads in my career where after Better Luck Tomorrow, I turned down literally everything that came my way because I'm like, I can't regress. I felt like a
Mm-hmm.
responsibility to the Asian American community who
Mm-hmm.
had seen this film and were supporting it. I'm like, I can't do anything else that's gonna regress.
Right.
But the problem was that we had created we had done that film because we were frustrated with what was in place,
Mm-hmm.
and that system was still in place. They were still seeing Asian American actors in these boxes of like, okay, the gangster in this the Chinatown episode of an episodic show, or
Right.
translator or computer guy,
Mm-hmm.
can't talk to women. And um and that next year after Bella Tomorrow, I literally booked only one independent film, um, and I think I made like $150 acting wise.
Wow.
And I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I come from being the lead actor
Right.
in this
Right.
progressive film, and then that's when I really had to rethink, and then I did like a TV show the year after that, and I played a Korean guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I would get hate, and it was a great character, and I didn't have to speak any Korean. My character just happened to be Korean, and
Right.
I still got hate mail saying, "You're Chinese. Why are you trying to play a Korean guy?" And I was like, "Holy cow!"
Wait, who did you get that from? From Asians?
Just from Asians, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
On my
wow.
Zanga
Okay.
blog, when I said, "Hey, check this out," and I would
Yeah.
get mail for that, and I was like, wow. I realized it was kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't
Right.
situation, and
Yep.
I realized, okay. Then I started realizing, I'm all I can do is sort of I've got to sort of be know that I'm trying to do my best
Mm-hmm.
with any character, and also I came to realization that like if I saw stereotypical roles, I mean, it took me 6 years of acting before Better Luck Tomorrow script came along. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, so it's I realized what a rarity it was, and most likely something like that coming along again was not gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that I would have to make my best out of what was coming my way. The first role that I sort of accepted was this role from the horror movie franchise called Hatchet.
Mm-hmm.
And the premise was
Is
that
that the
this
shirt you're wearing?
oh yeah, yeah. Um, and it's on paper, it's very like you see these roles come in where this guy he has a Cajun accent. He's like the tour boat driver. He's like, hey, y'all try the crawfish
Yeah,
yet?
I saw a piece of that. That was really funny.
Yeah. And then at a certain point, he's a con artist, and he speaks then in an Asian accent. And I'm
Right.
like, okay. And then once I booked the role, I told the director, I said, I'm kind of uncomfortable with doing the rest of the half of the film in an Asian accent, just because I told him about Better Luck Tomorrow, and I said, and also I think you will lose a good portion of the audience, the Asian American audience, because they'll be like, oh, come on, they just I don't think would react, kindly, because this is something that they've seen before and has been done before, and I suggested that how about at a certain point I at the end when the monster starts chasing us, he drops that act, and he's really just a con artist, and he just talks the way that I talk, and that
Mm-hmm.
way we milk the joke for one more beat,
Right.
and yet he becomes this progressive character that no one has really seen before. You
Mm-hmm.
think you have, but then later, sort of by that third act, it's like, whoa, okay, you know. And I remember my stunt double. He's a stunt guy. His name is Stephen Ho, and he's on Conan O'Brien now. He always does these stunt gags with Conan O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
But he's been working in the business forever, and he saw what I was doing, and he's like, "Wow, you were able to talk to the director and change it. I've never seen that.
Right.
So usually
Right.
you just kind of suck it up." And I was
Right.
like, yeah, but he seemed kind of okay with it and open to it because he doesn't want to lose people watching the film, and that's when I realized that any of these roles, no one has this Machiavellian like I'm gonna put the Asians down. It's written out of an ignorance, like
Right.
this is what they've seen before, so they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna recycle it
It's
because this
just
is what they
repeating.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and until they see something, not they don't know to copy that. So that's when it was the sort of the really empowering change where I started just like going in on all these auditions so that I can just take it away and be able to like make changes from within, you know, because
Right.
I knew my sensibilities, and that I was trying to do my best with whatever I was given, and so that's kind of the way I work. And I think to this day I've only turned down like three things
Right.
which I'm like, there's no way I can't. This is so offensive that I can't even think of how I would
Right.
change this, you know, or suggest a change, you know.
Right.
So that's kind of how I work, and that was
Right.
a big crossroads.
So what's the next big dream going forward?
Um, I would like to do. I would like to get back into the film world,
Mm-hmm.
just because I like being able to have time to craft a story,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a comedies sort of are very universal. Everybody, if you can make somebody laugh, I mean, it doesn't matter regarding race or anything like that. So it would be something that's just cleverly funny and that's accessible. I mean, that's kind of like, you know, anyone really hopes for. But to be a part of that, because I have been part of, you know, the horror genre, and action would be cool too, but
Mm-hmm.
that seems like a lot of work. You're running around and doing stunts. So I would say right now it'd be sort of a comedy, not a romantic comedy, but
What's
just
wrong
like
with the rom-com?
because I've done one already. So yeah, I've got my romantic comedy um, um, bag fulfilled. So right now I would just like to do just sort of like a kind of like a guy's comedy, nothing too nothing like Hangover to the point where it's that raunchy, but just something
Right.
where it's yeah, something where people are like, oh my gosh, I've done that too, and you know, but you
Mm-hmm.
know what I think would be cool? I haven't seen maybe something to do with like parenting, you know, because I'm at
Yeah,
that
that's
age where my audience that knows me
right.
are parents now and
Mm-hmm.
can relate to certain things that all parents go through.
Right. I've heard you say that John Ritter was a huge inspiration for you. And you
Yes.
watched Three's Company a lot, as did I. I still watch it to this day.
Yeah, me too.
What is your favorite line that you remember from Three's Company?
Oh man,
Or favorite moment?
favorite moment. Oh wow. Good question. Oh, um, to this day, it was a situation where I think uh, Jack was thought that that this client that was going to invest in his restaurant was sexually inappropriate to I think Janet, and so he
Hmm.
decided to make his food really spicy, like really
Okay.
spicy,
Mm-hmm.
and to like to sort of like you know get him out of his house. And
Mm-hmm.
but the thing is that it backfired because the guy really loves spicy food. So he was like,
I think
his
I remember
reaction was
this, yeah.
so good. He's eating the noodles like, oh
Right.
my gosh, this is so good.
Right, right.
And and Jack just kept on putting more. He's like, what is wrong with this guy? And just it was more of the reactions. And to this day, sometimes I'll over pepper my noodles and just be like, this is what that guy was feeling.
Do you still watch Three's Company today?
It's a hard. They don't rerun it as much because I think there's just so much other content. But
DVDs.
I do own all the DVDs, but I
Yep.
haven't watched it. But I think I'll introduce my kids to it, just because. I mean, John Ritter's his comedic timing was
Yeah,
just so on point, you know.
agreed. So, what is your favorite food?
Pizza.
Really? Wow.
Yes, my it's pizza, New York pizza, or it doesn't have to be from New York, but just something similar where it's just thin crust, plain cheese,
Mm-hmm.
like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone. So I don't want any other
Wow.
crap because I you can't really. There's no barometer, you know. You have to see what the basic is and how good that pizza is on the base level. So yeah,
That's
yeah,
interesting.
your
Okay.
pizza.
Favorite city in Asia?
Favorite city in Asia? I haven't traveled too much in Asia actually.
Have you been at all?
I've been to only Hong Kong
Mm.
and Taiwan.
Okay. So, of the
Uh,
two,
of the two, you know, there's it's interesting because the food in Taiwan was incredible.
hmm
Just because I I hadn't grown up on that kind of food before, so it was all very new. And because when I went to Hong Kong, um, it's all stuff that I've had before growing up, you know.
Right,
I mean,
right.
so it wasn't a big surprise, but at the same time, it was very interesting being sort of like part of the alpha male, you know, because
Mm,
usually I go anywhere, I'm the minority, you know, where
mm-hmm.
this one, I'm part of the norm there.
Right.
That was just really bizarre. I tapped into it was like the Matrix. Like all of a sudden, my Cantonese part took over. You know, I spoke Cantonese much
Right.
better than I've ever been able to speak before.
Right.
Yeah, but at the same time, didn't understand what anyone was saying.
Sure.
So it was very scary. I was like, if I get lost, like I carried the hotel business card everywhere I went, just
Oh my
like
God.
I need to get back here, because I was so frightened. I'm like, I can't communicate with anyone, you know. So, but I mean, yeah, I love that city as well. I mean, just I'm a big foodie, so I just love the night market there. And Hong Kong was just a bit too congested for me,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it was really cool and interesting, to sort of be able to like tap in instantly,
Right.
without question, to just sort of fit in.
That's so cool. Well, thank you, Perry, for your time today and for sharing these stories with our fans. And we'll let everybody know where they can find you all over the internet.
Awesome, great! It's great talking to you. I love your questions. It's one of
Thank
the
you.
most thorough and original interviews I've ever done.
I'll take that as a good thing.
Yes, it is.
Thanks, Perry.